exploring the role of Indian workers in the contract cheating market for essays and assignments. My name is Dr. Thomas Lancaster, and you can find out more about me at thomaslancaster.co.uk. You can also find a link there to my blog, and this video is going to form part of a blog post looking at the whole area about contract cheating and how some of the workers that students are using to complete their assignments for them come from India. Now, a little bit of background to start off this talk, and I'm a computer science specialist, educational researcher. I work at Birmingham City University as a senior lecturer. I've been researching the area of contract cheating and plagiarism since 2000, starting off my PhD and then the contract cheating work, looking at students buying work. I've done that with my colleague Robert Clark since about 2003 onwards. Now, as well as looking at my own specialised area of computer science and where students are outsourcing their programming assignments and other computing assignments, I've also moved on and looked particularly at essays across a variety of academic subjects, and much of my recent work has focused in on health and nursing. And this work and my wider educational credentials are recognised by Higher Education Academy, where I'm a senior fellow. So that's enough about me. I want to start off by giving a working definition of contract cheating. And the definition for the purpose of this video is a student pays or otherwise uses a third party to complete their assessed work for them. So we're looking at a student who is taking advantage of a marketplace where they can buy answers to their questions. And these students are going to be buying an original solution. They're paying someone to pretend to be the student to complete the work. The student will then hand in that work. They'll then get credit for the work which they may not deserve. I use the word pay. Occasionally with contract cheating being done for free. For instance, a student may make use of a friend or family member to help them with their work, but in most cases there's money changing hands. And I've done quite a lot of work on contract cheating before, many presentations, mostly in some of my videos, some other sets of slides, some academic papers, and my work in the media. But why this particular question about India? Well, I'm going to cover that in this talk because I'm going to show you the media has been really interested in the work, from some really throwaway comments, small mentions of India, a few examples of Indian workers in the past. They've really focused in on this, and hopefully this video will be useful to the media representative watching this as well to give some wider answers. I want to show you one example of work being outsourced in this way. I've just collected this today just to demonstrate that there really are Indian workers used in this way, and also just to close by looking at some of the wider landscape that's fueling student cheating in India, because this hasn't just come about purely because of people in India being very keen to complete work for UK students or students from all around the world. So let's start off with that first question. Why examine contract cheating from India? Well, this has been a long-standing news story. We published our first work in contract cheating in 2006 based on data collected prior to that point. I had published, in fact, related academic papers and mentioned the area before, but our first major publication was in 2006, and these were some of the headlines that were picked up on at that time. Most of these in 2006, some of these in 2008 when there was a mini resurgence, and there's probably another 20 examples I could pick up from here, but many of these are just repeating the same information. It's actually quite amusing to look at the way news stories are repeated, often with some very small changes to the wording there. We can see some quite well-known Indian news sources, such as the Times of India. Some of the other ones there. There's a blog there, very similar headlines. UK students outsource contract cheating to India and related areas. Focusing a bit on the bottom left, Contractor UK, which is a publication, unsurprisingly within the UK, aimed at people working on contract work, so particularly in the IT field, and they picked up on this story as well because there were UK-based workers completing work for students as part of this, but they mentioned at the bottom about a student deported from the US, an Indian student, when his assignments were found to have been outsourced. So there are real consequences from students who are cheating in this way when they get caught. And I've seen some more recent examples as well suggesting of deportation around the world from students who have been caught cheating. So it really is not worth doing. But that's looking at this from the other side of the fence. That's looking at a student who's been cheating. In this video, we're looking much more at the people helping the students to cheat. Now, the main reason this video has come around is because this story has raised its head again very recently, January 2016, with, I'll say, two main stories. It's been picked up again in different ways. They've got different quotes in both of these stories, and you can see the links there. The Hindustan Times, who have covered this before in slightly different ways, and International Business Times. Now, of course, there are a lot of English language speakers in India, so there's a big market for English language newspapers. So all these stories do get covered much more in India than they do in some other parts of the world. And you can see the kind of titles there: India key source of contract cheating at UK varsities, and essays for sale: Indian contract cheaters help thousands of UK students to con the system. Now, I couldn't give you exact numbers, but there are certainly, I think that probably that second example was reading between the lines and combining several different sources together to get that figure. But these two stories both picked up on several areas I think are worth highlighting. The high level of English language ability available through workers in India. There are a lot of people with very strong English there, and even workers with English as their second language are able to do some work. It may be good enough for somebody not wanting to appear to be a top tier of student, and certainly I originally picked up in this area through computing assignments, through websites used for outsourcing computing work, and you don't need great English language skills to be able to do computing assignments anyway. The advantage for students, of course, of hiring a worker from India is the pricing is normally a lot lower than hiring an equivalent UK worker, and it might be for writing an essay, it might be for completing technical work. There's all kinds of areas that your worker from India or from another country can focus in on. Now, there are risks as well that come with that, which I will mention briefly later in this video. I think a very interesting point as well is that, of course, in the UK we have a large number of international students, many of whom come to the UK, get a degree, and then return to their home country. India is one such example, and people can rightly go back to India and then advertise they've got a UK degree, which is convincing marketing for a student thinking of hiring them, because it means they're familiar with the UK educational system. It means they clearly have done work to the standard needed in the UK as well. Now, there is a side question about whether people should be completing work for students. Of course, they shouldn't, but I have spoken to many people who do work for students, and I can understand the pressures they're under and the reasons they do that. But I think that's an ethical consideration for another time. But there's lots of interesting areas there, and I think it's worth mentioning as well that our research has never focused specifically on India. So India has been picked up by the press at different points, but it's not something that we've focused in on. That's one reason I'm recording this video today. There's all kinds of other countries we've observed students using as well, in some quite large numbers. Some examples there: Pakistan, Kenya, Nigeria. I remember Romania came up a lot in the earlier part of the work we were doing. So many other countries. In fact, the example in a few minutes' time will show you some other countries as well. So I wanted to really be able to expand a bit on some of the stuff we've been doing the rounds in the media, and try and profile the type of workers who are completing assignments. So this is a live example. A few minutes ago I've gone and collected this data. I haven't analysed it in any great depth. This same example could be repeated many times in form of really interesting academic paper, but for now this is just one example. I've been on freelancer.com. It's a site we've been studying for years, looking at the type of assignments that are being put out for tender, and essentially these assignments go through a bidding process. Workers bid to do this work for the students, and this was one of the first examples I saw, and in fact the only one I opened up because it looked interesting and it turned out to meet my needs completely. Statistics homework, 9 questions, $15, done in 1 hour. That's what the student wanted. Now, they probably haven't gone about outsourcing this the best way because they've agreed to pay somebody based on the time they take to complete the assignment, but that is a question for another day as to how to get the most value when you're trying to outsource your assignment, which I think I'll probably save for quite a few years yet before I answer that one. But The interesting thing, this student has asked for statistics work, which of course maths probably doesn't need brilliant English language skills, and they've suggested a price $15. That's United States dollars. Seems relatively low, probably about £10 for people watching this in the UK. And they've had 20 bids. This is still open for bids at the time of recording this video. And there's more information. You could find this as a copy of the questions is up there as well. I haven't gone into those in any great detail for the purpose of this, because I'm more interested in the numbers and the locations of the bidders. So 20 bids. Here are all the bidders, just very roughly collected and put on this slide. You can see some very catchy looking usernames there, but draw your attention probably towards the bottom right. Beaver Analytical, Pradeep J5061, and you can see the Indian flag. There's also another example, Arijit Ajuha there as well, also using the Indian flag. There's various other countries involved. Some interesting choices of usernames, some more effective than others. But this is just one example, and in case you can't recognize all those flags that quickly, I certainly couldn't claim to be 100% on that, but luckily Freelancer tells me the country when you hover over the flag. This is a summary sorted by country, and out of those 20 bids, 3 of them from India, the highest number. And I'm slightly surprised at that, because I didn't expect India to be at the top of the list. I thought it would be near the top along with a lot of other countries. This is quite a small sample, so we can't read too much into this, but 15% there of bidders from India. And we've also got Kenya, Morocco, and you can see the list of other countries: Pakistan, Bangladesh, Brazil, Czech Republic, Greece, Malaysia, Mauritius, Serbia, Sri Lanka, Turkey, United States, and Vietnam. And without doing any in-depth analysis, you'll see different types of economies there. Only one example from the United States, but I suspect even for $15, this is something that a worker who knows their stats can turn around really quickly, and it might be something to do quickly to earn a bit of money, who knows. And there's various other more emerging economies in there as well. But it's certainly interesting looking at India at the very top of the list. So who are these different workers bidding to do this work for students? There are 3 of them. The first 2 particularly focused on maths, which is quite interesting. Arijit there focusing on statistics. I look at that and think, not brilliant standard of English, but perhaps that doesn't matter for the purpose of statistical assignment. And also Beaver Analytical, engineering and maths professionals. Now the interesting thing about that one is that they use the term we rather than I in there. We have seen in the past on these freelancer sites examples where what the people are actually bidding are a group rather than individual. It may be the case then, or that may alternatively just be somebody whose English isn't quite up to scratch so much. Who knows? Now, those first 2 bidders haven't done any work on Freelancer before, so they're new, which is quite interesting. Whether they've won work in the past and not completed it, I didn't go into that analysis, or whether they bid for work, probably more likely in the past. Again, I didn't do that analysis, but they have done work. Let me rephrase that, they have not done work before through Freelancer. They may have had other accounts with different names in the past, as people do, and they may well have done work on other sites. Pradeep at the bottom is much more interesting, and the first thing I see there is a looking for challenging career. So this suggests to me that if we did some more analysis, they're probably doing this possibly as a stopgap measure, looking to get a career, and that could always be one concern about why the careers aren't there out there for these people. Of course, we've no idea about the standard of this person, but they're mentioning a lot of very modern computing skills. This is very much a computing person here, such as Java, Oracle, MySQL, Hibernate, HTML5, Bootstrap, an area I've been looking into recently, and Pradeep says that they've been working as a software engineer. So this is very much the type of work you expect to see on freelancers. So perhaps you'd expect to see them completing a lot of computing work for external companies. Well, I looked at what work they've done, and this is their most recent 5 projects they've done. They've done 37 projects in all. This is the most recent 5, and you can see, first of all, write a short report at the top left. 20 British pounds, 30 US dollars roughly, Given 5 stars, A++, very good work. The feedback from their customer, clearly an academic assignment there. Just having a very quick glance. MIS report, the second one, I think that's probably Management Information Systems, again a computing assignment, $30 US. Finished the assignment on time, been given 5 stars again. Next one down, Uni Information Retrieval Assignment helps. I think what Uni gives away, this is an academic assignment, $61. It's probably about 40 British pounds. A pleasure to work with, work completed ahead of time. Slightly less promising at the top right, write a summary and make the PPT of my paper in advanced database. So clearly the request isn't that well phrased. That's asking to complete a PowerPoint presentation, which is interesting because I know of academics who set PowerPoint presentations as assignments because they're very hard to cheat on, but you can see the request there has been made for $70 US to do that. Now in this case the student has not got what they wanted, so cheating doesn't always pay and you don't always get what you want. They've clearly paid because they've been allowed to give a star rating for this. And just to show they're not always just doing assignments, then send wedding invitations to guests via email, $50 Australian. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is for the Australian dollar. It's probably about 25 British pounds, 35 to 40 US from memory, maybe slightly more, but I can imagine reading that next line in an Australian accent. I'm not going to do it, but thanks mate, you nailed it. So that one, perhaps a useful way of hiring somebody to complete work which would take you a long time to do. Particularly, I'm going to assume these wedding invitations were personalised, so there can be some good. But I did look through these 37 completed projects. I haven't had a chance to do a full analysis, but generally feedback very positive, and almost all of them, with just a few exceptions like the send wedding invitations, are for academic work. So this is somebody who's focusing on doing work for students. And remember, this is just one example of a worker from India. So these people are out there, and it'd be very interesting to do a more thorough analysis of that worker and some other Indian workers to see what kind of work they are doing, and also to do a more thorough analysis of the type of people who are bidding on student work, just to see, because this is just quite literally the first assignment I came across on the site, and just looked at the 3 Indian workers who bid, and this is the one who'd completed work beforehand. So clearly somebody focusing on computing assignments. All kinds of other sites out there focusing on writing particularly essays and other types of work as well. Now I think really it's worth looking at one more example from the media here, and I'm also going to add to this a potential warning. I think we've just seen a potential warning that somebody was very unhappy with their work from Pradeep, maybe a one-off, but here's an example that we did some work. We did an investigative study with the Guardian newspaper, UK newspaper. It's a few years back now, but this was looking at them requesting various different essays. There was a computing example as well, which they outsourced to an American worker. The history essay they used Freelancer for, or it may have been its previous name, to complete that. Paid, it doesn't give the exact number in the article. It says between 35 and 40 US, but that will tell you 25 to 30 pounds in British terms to get a second-year undergraduate history essay in. You can read a lot more about this in the article, and in this particular case the work was found to have been plagiarized. 70% of the text, when this was run through Turnitin, was identical to journal article. So you're not always going to get what you expect when you outsource your work. You may win the lottery and get very good work back, but you may not as well. So is that a risk worth taking? And I add that because I know there will be some students watching this video, both for research purposes and perhaps to find some ideas, and there's no judgment, but do think carefully about what would happen if you did get caught with an assignment that was 70% plagiarized, and that wouldn't end up well. To close then, does cheating in India matter? I focused very much on the workers in India who are available to complete work for students, but there have been lots of examples of more of an epidemic of cheating in India, and this story was picked up all over the place. This is Bihar in March 2015, showing parents and presumably family members climbing up to try and pass notes through windows to their children taking what was essentially the equivalent of high school or possibly university level entrance exam there. And there are all kinds of other interesting examples from around that time about cheating in India. There's examples of the technologies that can be taken into exams to help people to cheat. They have these really miniature earpieces that practically indetectable, can go in a student's ear and some from outside can communicate with them. Tiny cameras that can be transmitted through miniature mobile phones as well to send the questions out to somebody. And even seen examples of vests that students can wear with all these technology built in, and your phone in that case is a little bigger than a SIM card. In fact, there was also an example of having all this technology built into ready-to-wear underwear as well. So it takes all sorts. But of course the pressures on people to succeed in India are very high, just like they are elsewhere. And people do what they need to do to succeed. But of course, when a student cheats, if they don't enter the UK educational system, they're not equipped to deal with it, and that can lead to problems down the line over here as well. Hope you found this video useful. It's been great to have the opportunity to share some thoughts about contract cheating and the Indian market with you. There's a few more resources if you need them. Particularly, you might want to look on my SlideShare account, slideshare.net/Thomas Lancaster, where you can find these slides to review them. You can also contact me on Twitter at Dr. Lancaster, and my website address, which has been on all of these slides. If you're interested about talking about contract cheating on Twitter, do use the hashtag #contractcheating. I'll monitor that one. I'll get back to you as well. And feel free to get in contact with me if you'd like me to speak at your event, give a keynote presentation covering all aspects of cheating, ranging from contract cheating, plagiarism prevention, detection, looking in particular areas like computing, medicine, nursing, and I've done a lot of work recently on cheating in exams, which I'm very keen to share as well. And you can see some of this work on international students, which I've spoken about in the past as well. And I can easily put together a interesting presentation looking at the cultural issues involved there. I'm certainly quite concerned about the different countries involved in helping to fuel the contract cheating marketplace. There's still a lot more work to be done. Thanks again for joining me, and you can find out more about me at thomaslancaster.co.uk, and do go to my blog, thomaslancaster.co.uk/blog, and leave your comments and thoughts on this story.